Wow, I'm really looking forward to talking about Saturn, said no one ever. Saturn is by definition a very difficult energy to deal with, and now that it has shifted into the sign of Aries, it is about to restructure the very essence of who you think you are. Yes, my beautiful, gorgeous butterfly, you will find out in the coming years just how important you are to society. Because believe it or not, people make up society. And our conscious awareness is going to be tested. How brave are you in stepping in and doing the right thing when no one's watching? How brave are you to continue to be yourself when everything around you is scrutinizing you and asking you to conform and be somebody that you're not? Saturn, as a challenging energy, is going to put a lot of pressure on us, both individually and collectively, to transform the very essence of our egos. And in the process, it's going to bring us increased confidence, stability, and best of all, the capacity to rebuild structures in society that are falling apart. So in this clip, I break down for you how the transit of Saturn from 2025 until 2028 is going to affect us. Let's get into it. Hi everyone, I'm Alexandra Macht. I'm a certified astrologer. I'm very happy to have you here with me today. Thank you for stopping by. Please remember to like this video, subscribe, and comment down below. I really love to start up a debate related to this transit. I'm sure that if you are here, you have certain planets or points in Aries in your chart that are most likely affected by this transit. But share this video with your friends and family, because even though they may not have any planets or points that directly impact them, they will be nonetheless affected by the transit of Saturn in Aries, because whether we like it or not, all of us have in our birth charts a little house, a little area that has Aries energy inside of it. All this being said, in this clip, I'm going to first give you the facts, the dates, the periods that Saturn is going to go direct and retrograde, because you really need to know those so you can plan ahead. Please mark them in your calendars and try not to schedule important things or life-changing events around the time when Saturn is going to go direct or retrograde. It is well known that exactly on the day when such a transit happens, there is a big shift and there are a lot of weather changes phenomena. There are a lot of problems that may suddenly appear, especially since Saturn right now is in the most active, impulsive, and feisty sign of the zodiac, Aries. After I give you some of the dates, I'm going to briefly talk about how this energy is going to influence the houses of the zodiac, where you may have planets and points. And I'm also going to talk a little bit more generally about the influences we can expect when Saturn, the icy outer planet that actually marks the boundaries of our solar system, finds itself moving through the first constellation of our known zodiac. These energies are highly contradictory because Aries is impulsive, it's primal, feisty, wants to do its own thing. Some people call Aries hot-headed and selfish, but they also call them charismatic and exciting. So you take all of that energy of a cardinal fire sign and you try to limit it, to block it, to ice it out, to impose restrictions and regulations on such a powerfully enthusiastic life force. And the contradictions that are going to emerge from this ice meeting fire are actually going to be exactly the thing that we need, because we need to have our creativity be pushed out of ourselves so we can begin to rebuild social structures that are so necessary in most parts of the world at the moment, since they have been massively affected either by war and political conflict, changing weather phenomena and natural disasters, or economic downturns. So wherever you find yourself in the world at the moment, you have been in some way impacted by the dredge of Pluto and Capricorn that has been taking place in the last 15 years. And now Saturn in Aries is beginning a new karmic cycle, because Saturn being in the first sign of the zodiac means that it's pressing the reset button and it begins a new karmic 29 years and a half cycle. This is how long it takes for the planet Saturn to move through the entirety of the 12 zodiac signs, or the 12 constellations. Being in the first sign of the zodiac means fresh energy, fresh karma, We can wipe the slate clean on some of the debts that we have prior incurred, but this also means the responsibility of being very mindful and aware of the actions that you take. The first movement of Saturn is marked by the period 26th of May 2025 until the 2nd of September 2025. Now, starting from the 13th of July 2025, Saturn is going to begin its retrograde. So mark that date in the calendar. Why is this cutoff point important? Well, because on the 26th of May, Saturn moved direct into Aries. On the 13th of July, Saturn will begin its retrograde movement from the sign of Aries back into Pisces. And on the 2nd of September, Saturn will have transited outside of the constellation of Aries and back into the constellation of Pisces, binding itself at 29th degrees Pisces. For those of you who are Pisceans and have planets in points around, especially the last degrees of Pisces, I have some bad news. Sadly, throughout the entire fall and winter season, or if you are in the southern hemisphere, spring and summer season, you are going to be tested one more time by the final rounds, the final miles before the finish line of Saturn transiting through any planets or points that you may have in Pisces. And this is going to take place from the 2nd of September until the 15th of February. Starting with 15th of February, Saturn moves again into Aries. And that is going to be the final point. It will no longer slide back into Pisces. It will continue to do its retrograde movement because Saturn has a yearly retrograde movement, much like Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, but it will remain in the sign of Aries from 2026. The really important date that we need to keep in mind is 15th of February 2026. That's going to be the complete period in which we will begin to have only Saturn and Aries energy. Up until that point, it's gonna be a little bit of a drunk movement that Saturn is gonna play, moving from Aries into Pisces, giving us all a little bit a case of motion sickness or cabin fever energy. So 2025 is the chaotic year that it promised to be. A lot of planets are changing signs, so a lot of things are being set in motion and then taken back. We notice what's happening in world politics as people are putting forth laws and then actually going over them and deciding, no, we don't actually want to do that. So there will be a lot of people changing their minds, a lot of agreements that will be dissolved, a lot of mistakes that will be made as we rush towards specific goals, and then we change our minds and we decide, oh my God, we need to correct that. Another important day that you need to keep in mind is the second retrograde movement of Aries, which will be taking place from the 27th of July until the 11th of December of 2026. We all know that when Saturn moves retrograde, it becomes more powerful, but it also tends to kind of dissolve its limitations. So that's going to be a bit of a heavy pressure prone period. So please make sure to mark it in your calendar. And then the third retrograde movement of Saturn in Aries is going to take place in 2027 between the dates 10th of August and up until Christmas Eve, 24th of December. From the 24th of December 2027 all the way up until 14th of April 2028, that will be the final stretch of Saturn in the sign of Aries. Because on the 14th of April 2028, we are going to get ready to embark on a very powerful financial rebuild process that will be initiated by Saturn in the sign of Taurus. We will have to think about issues related to identity, creativity, how you are supporting yourself with confidence in a world that seems to try to take away a lot of your rights. How are you being self-reliant, independent, and brave? We will see more acts of bravery done by people at local grassroots level, people binding together to save and rescue communities and try to provide for the weakest and protect those that cannot protect themselves. And that's the high vibration of Saturn in the sign of Aries. But Saturn in Aries could also increase the negative aspects of a Mars-ruled sign, such as petty thefts, criminality, assaults and abuses, an incitement to violence and breaking the rules of society just to prove a point, just because your ego was wounded. We could also see a lot of illegal activity happening underhand because of the taxations, rules and regulations that a lot of governing bodies are trying to impose upon the population to control inflation. We may see a lot of people selling bootleg things. For example, we could see a rise in copies, people stealing the identity of other people, most likely people in resources poor countries, trying to steal the identities of people in resources rich countries to try to get access to their accounts and to their goods, to their material wealth. We could see a lot more theft also on the online environment, people trying to steal each other's work, so copyright infringement is going to be big again. Unfortunately, we may see also the rise of a lot of rebellious criminal cartels and all sorts of gangs that unite to defend a specific region. This is also because Saturn in Aries is going to make a friendly aspect to Pluto in Aquarius. So power to the people. But then you also have kind of like these criminals that are going to believe in this saying, power to the people, and they will decide that they should take law into their own hands. So vigilantes and kind of like a Wild West vibe is going to be quite prevalent in the collective. People taking the law into their own hands because the structures of society are crumbling and nobody knows whom to turn to. And this is natural. This happens in the process of us trying to rewrite rules and regulations and rebuild societies and try to find some sort of stability. Sometimes in order to move forward, you gotta take some steps backward. So it would feel in certain parts of this transit like things are pretty medieval, like you have to really fight your way to get what you want or to protect what you have already acquired. But Saturn in Aries is also incredibly pioneering. When push comes to shove, it also shows us that we have inner resources and all we need to do is be sparked up by creativity and enthusiasm and start just doing them. We will feel the pressure to just do a lot of things, while also we will feel the fear of what our doings will have as consequences. I hope this makes sense. So Saturn has this kind of ambivalent energy. It really makes a sign ambitious to fulfill itself. And Aries can be incredibly impatient in achieving its ambition. Aries people are known to be just the kind of like doers that get up in the morning and are just like until the end of the day, you know, and then they just come home and put their head on the bed and fall asleep. They are incredibly dynamic. They are bundles of joy and warmth. They're very loving people, but they can also be a little bit too rash. They can jump into situations and cause a lot of harm, both to themselves and to those around them. Accidents are going to be big. Please guard this part of your body because Aries is known to rule the head. So anything related to your hair, your eyes, your nose, your mouth, your chin, your jaw, your ears, all of these aspects are going to be at the forefront of concerns and limits and tests. In addition to this, Saturn also is going to create some issues with not only individuality and your head, but issues that are connecting the two. So how mental health is going to affect how you express yourself and who you believe you are. So expect to see more people with dissociative personality disorders or people with all sorts of temperamental problems. Anger management is going to be the most important aspect that Saturn in Aries is going to bring to the forefront. In addition to this, negotiation, communicating and talking about things until we have resolved our differences. This is going to be an essential aspect of this transit. So no longer punching each other, no longer cussing at each other, no longer blocking or running away from conflict, but standing your ground by using reason and using your natural charisma and your temperament, your personality, to convince the other person of what you believe is right. So this is going to be a core aspect, and this is really important, especially for those of you who will be having your Saturn return during this transit of Saturn in Aries. Case in point, Hailey Bieber is having at the moment her Saturn return. Right at the moment when we are speaking this, she has Saturn in Aries at, if I'm not mistaken, either 0 or 1 degrees, and she is going through the motions. Not only has she recently become a mother, but she has also recently sold her successful business, Road. Some people believe that she's doing this move in order to save her husband, Justin Bieber, from death. But this is just an allegation. Please don't take my word for it. God knows what went through Hailey's head when she decided to give up Road. Maybe she believes that one project is closed and now a new creative project is something that will deserve her attention. A lot of us will be going through something similar, especially those of you who have Saturn natally in Aries, or if you have your ascendant, your sun, moon, north node, Venus, and Mars in the sign of Aries. Mercury as well, but Mercury to a lesser degree, because usually when you have a Saturn crossing over your Mercury, this is an intense period of studying, reading, writing. You tend to become more introverted. You don't express yourself so clearly. But Saturn in Aries is affecting the other personal planets in a much more powerful way. With Mars, it will be taken away from your vitality, and it will be bringing a certain amount of cruelty and physical effort in your life, especially coming from other men. Saturn transiting over your Venus in Aries, well, this is a period in which you are going to have to find a way to monetize what you know and the people that you know. So let me put it bluntly. You're going to have to find a way to make money from the relationships that you have. This could mean a variety of things. For example, when I had Saturn transiting over my Venus, I made a lot of money by working from home and putting the legal foundations of my business, the spiritual social. It was a period of intense work, but at the end of it, I actually gathered sufficient money to buy a small flat. Saturn transiting through your Venus could mean you really need to put a lot of effort into your business if this is your goal. But if you have another more romantic goal, you really need to put a lot of effort into a personal connection that will be testing you. Saturn transiting over your moon, this is a really tough one. It means that you will be in some way separated, or there will be challenges in your relationship to your mother figure, to your hometown, to what you know to be familiar, comforting, and safe. There will be pressure on you to feel heavy emotions. Usually people lose their loved ones when Saturn transits either over their sun or their moon. So if you have a parent or a relative with pre-existing conditions, get ready emotionally, because you may have to endure a certain amount of suffering in the coming 2.5 years. But this will only make you wiser and stronger. And at the end of this transit, it could be that you decide to fight that loss with life by bringing something new into existence, either creating your own family or giving birth to a creative project that heals your heart. Saturn transiting over your sun, these are tests of ego. People are going to challenge you, criticize you. They are going to take you outside of your comfort zone. They are going to want to provoke you so that you step out of your integrity and show the world that you are actually not the person you said you were. Resist temptation to react. Resist temptation to retaliate. Prepare your responses, especially if you have to present the product, defend your business, protect your family. You are going to be tried and tested in terms of who you are. People are not going to like who you are. If in the past, when you didn't have the Saturn transit over your Aries sun, people found you popular and cool and fun, now people are going to bring up receipts and say, why did you do this to me a couple of years ago? Why did you say this to me? Who do you think you are? There are problems in your family. There are problems at work. How are you going to solve them? So you have to be very mindful of the energy that you put out. I can tell you hand on heart, I'm just at the end of this transit. Saturn has been transiting on my Piscean sun for the last 2.5 years. I bought a place, I sold the place. It actually affected my health dramatically. My father got sick and he actually died in the final degrees of this transit. And I really struggled to focus on doing my work. And it has been a daily act of courage and effort to show up and do the work that I'm actually really good at and I really love doing. Keeping these things in mind, I'm only telling these things not to scare you, but I want you guys to know that if you are a sun in Aries, these are certain things that could happen to you in the next 2.5 years as you're having Saturn testing you. It depends at which point in your life you find yourself, whether you are having your Sun conjunct Saturn as you're having your Saturn return, whether you're having your second Saturn return, which takes place in your 60s, whether you're having Saturn transiting over your Sun around the age of 38, 39 years of age, it's overlapping with your midlife crisis, or whether you're a little bit younger and you're just having a more difficult transit in terms of adjusting to the needs of the collective, of society, of school, of being part of your family. So it depends on your age. Keep that in mind, because each of you will be affected differently. And if you want to get in touch with me for a personal birth chart report, I can help you with that. We can specifically aim at creating the report around your Saturn transit if this is what you wish. Okay, shameless self-promotion to the side. I want to give you a little bit of a sample right now to how Saturn can react in the houses of the zodiac. This is not going to be at all an in-depth exploration. I'm not going to waste too much of your time. I just want to briefly guide you through the 12 houses of the zodiac. If you have Saturn crossing over your ascendant, and most likely in your first house, most people have their ascendant placed in their first house. Saturn in the first house is going to restructure your personality. How you relate to other people is going to come under scrutiny. You have to be very humble. Adopt the approach of, you're right, but I'm also right, and if we can't get along, then let's leave it for a period of time and come back to this issue later on. It is better to not retaliate or act impulsively, but to listen to other people, listen to the criticism that they give you, and then decide, should I take this in my stride or should I just brush it off because it doesn't ring true to me? People are going to come at you and they will tell you that your body doesn't look right, or your temperament is wrong, or there's something problematic about you. They may attack your social status, your race, they may attack your gender. There could be issues here related to your style, personal sense of style. Maybe people will find you dressed too pompous or too modest. Usually when Saturn transits through the most visible house of the zodiac, the first house, you will tend to wear more black. You are going to be drawn towards quality fabrics that are a bit rougher, maybe of lesser luxurious quality. It's more of wearing a daily uniform that can help you get to work on time and not fiddle too much with things. You could cut your hair, could also darken your features in some way, because Saturn brings this energy of snip snap cutting and also darkening features. Saturn in the second house is going to be about financial maintenance. Save up money during this transit. My loves, this is so important, because you may find yourself living from your savings account throughout this transit. Saturn is going to delay the money that will come to you. If you had a reliable and stable and really prosperous source of income, it may be snapped in half during this transit. Why? Because Saturn wants to see that you can live well within limited means. Please don't make any gorgeous big purchases in this period. Please try to stay away from luxury items. It's a period of just 2.5 years in your life when you're going to have to be very strategic about how you make money, but especially how you spend it. Don't get into debt. Debt is the enemy of Saturn. Only pay for things that you can afford. Live well within your means. And by the end of this transit, Saturn is going to reward you with a sum of money that will come to you through your sheer effort, but also through the fact that other people around you will have noticed how good you are at managing your money and saving things. So a bank could all of a sudden change their opinion over you and decide that, hey, you're actually a reliable person. Look, you haven't actually maxed out your economy account. Your debit is still really good. So we can approve that loan on the house that you want, or we can help you get a credit for personal needs. You need to come across as reliable and stable in terms of your finances. You need to be open, transparent, and ethical in what you do with money. Don't hide away from public declarations of wealth or telling people that, I have some money, but it's coming from mysterious places. This will only take away from your integrity, okay? I can tell you guys, I was born with Saturn in the second house. It's a very rough placement, but if you take good care of it, it can actually bring you wealth, steady, increased wealth. For example, Zendaya has this placement in her chart. Saturn in the third house is going to be about being careful what you say and to whom you say it. This is a period in which you may find that your chances to talk to other people, to express yourself, to use social media, gadgets, apps, laptops, computers, and even the local transport in your environment, well, all of these things are going to feel limited or blocked. There could be road works happening in your area. So all of a sudden, you're going to have to take a different, diverted, longer route to work. Or you may encounter problems with your phone, with your laptop. They could be breaking down a lot of times. So you need to save up money to buy new gadgets and to make sure that the ones that you bought, they are working properly. In addition to this, you may come across a large sum of money that is being given to you to study something specific. People at work could actually pull you out of work and tell you need to do an extra certification. You may feel that crunching numbers is going to become increasingly more important in your job, even if you're not a numbers person. Because Saturn rules the mind when it is placed in your third house, it will give you a case of feeling a little bit slowed down, like you need to really think deeply about things. Embrace this energy, don't rush with thinking or communication, and you're gonna smoothly sail through it. Saturn in the fourth house, ouch, this is really weird because it kind of gives you a case of emotional numbness. You may be feeling a little bit detached from your emotions, but it is a welcomed period. If you are usually a tempestuous and passionate person, this is a welcome period of calm. Saturn is gonna keep you stable at the level of your feelings. Your relationship with a mother figure is going to go through some changes. In the case in which it was very difficult, it may actually have a breakthrough that will be quite positive and wise. And in the eventuality in which your relationship with your mother was always nice but a little bit superficial, there will be some issues coming up that you will have to deal with. Problems related to inheritance, your culture, your ancestry, your home are going to be quintessential. Many of you are going to begin working from home and transforming the home into your business setup, into your office space. And that's actually going to give you a nice sum of money that you can create as a nest egg for your children or for other people to give as inheritance. Saturn in the fifth house is going to bring a lot of pressure on who you are and what are you doing with your life? What are your goals? Are you the charming, charismatic, spiritual, and funny person that you think you are? You're going to be feeling the pressure to be all of these things, to be this person that stands out and has a name and has a reputation that is spotless. But at the same time, you could be meeting people and making deals that are going to test you in that capacity. Are you going to choose your ego over your values? Saturn in the fifth house can be incredibly spiritual and creative. If you are a dancer, a performer, a singer, a theater kid, an actor, an actress, if you're somebody that has a creative business, in the next 2.5 years, you may encounter certain issues that are going to help you clear up and correct some mistakes so that by the end of this transit, your business is going to be even stronger. People will know your name. You may have a different agent or a different person that represents you in front of important partners. You may get more partnerships and supports and collaboration that are paid in the coming period. You may have to withstand a certain exam in front of a board to get admitted into an artistic school, and you're going to have to study intensely for that to prepare. But keep in mind that Saturn rewards hard work and effort. And in the sign of Aries, this means that you may have to do something with your body, like dance a lot or rehearse a lot with your body. And the more effort and energy you put into it, the more Saturn is going to be like, here is your wonderful reward. Saturn in the sixth house, this is the placement that I have at the moment, is going to be a lot about your daily routine, your work, and how your work is affecting your well-being. You have to take really good care of yourself, because if you don't, it's going to crack up your daily work schedule. This is the placement of a person that needs to understand the balance between work and life. It is really important to think also not only of your physical health, that you have slept well, are hydrated, and have eaten well, but you also need to think about your mental health and how burnout can lead you to situations of deep depression or generalized anxiety that is going to be very hard to treat. So put effort into going to the doctor, doing your blood analysis, make sure that you're seeing a professional if you're going through something difficult, because the more you take care of yourself, the more energy will be unleashed so that you can work and earn money. Your wealth is literally in your health during this transit. And not only that, but there could be some limitations from the environment around you, the society in which you live, the environment, the immediate environment, like your neighborhood, could go through certain changes that require time, effort, and patience. If you put up with them, by the end of this transit, you will have a generalized sense that the society, the environment, the neighborhood in which you live is more stable, it's more clean, and it's more efficiently run. So keep that in mind whenever you feel like lashing out at people that are doing construction works next to you. It's important for you to take into your stride that it's changing. The environment is changing in your life. It may be restricted now, but in a couple of months, a year or two, you will live in a much better environment. So it's worth being patient for things that you want. Saturn in the 7th house, this is a really tough one. Why? Because it tests your capacity to form a commitment with somebody, to stick to a commitment as well. Let's say you were single for a really long time. Well, during this transit, a really wonderful soulmate could appear in your life, but your commitment to this person will be constantly tested. There could be complications related to the family of the person that you have fallen in love with. There could be some self-sabotage patterns that appear between you and this person. So you may have to do some additional therapeutic work to keep the relationship together. There could be temptations such as, you've been together with a person for a very long period of time. Saturn enters your 7th house and you guys decide to get married to make your commitment even more solid. But then all of a sudden, a lot of temptations appear. People start wanting to hang out with you, wanting to romance you and become sensual with you. Will you give in or will you respect the integrity of your relationship? Saturn in the 7th house could also mean you falling in love with an older person or a person that is not that good looking, but has certain benefits that keep you stable and make you feel safe. It's usually a period when a person tends to be separated from their loved ones. Maybe you find a job or you have to go to study in a different place, in a different country, on a different continent than the one in which you have all the people that you know. Even though you may be a very good-looking person, attractive, intelligent, a great catch, it will feel like almost like Saturn is keeping people away from you so that you can spend some time by yourself thinking about aspects of your nature that you still need to integrate, because the 7th house is also the house of our shadow energy. So be careful whom you sign contracts with. Be careful what commitments you say yes to, because they will not be running as smoothly or as fastly as you imagine them to be. But by the end of this transit, if you stuck with a specific contract, if you stuck with a specific commitment, it will actually prove to be phenomenally benefic for you, and it will yield some sort of material results. Like, let's say you got married to this person and then you get pregnant. Or let's say you signed the contract, you put in the hard work in the next 2.5 years, and then you get released from this contract and you get a lot of money. Saturn in the 8th house, this is potentially a really difficult one to explain. The 8th house is the house of the occult. It's the house of sexuality, hidden things. It is the house of trust. Deep wounds related to parts of yourselves that weren't healed are going to come up to the surface. Psychological work is especially important. Either you performing it as a professional yourself while you are studying for it, or you going to meet some sort of psychologically trained professional, seeing a psychiatrist, working with a healer, maybe a social work person, somebody that can help empower you in a specific area of your life. Relationships that are kind of connected with money and trust are going to come at the forefront, and they will also be tested. If you need to receive an inheritance, if money is owed to you by the government, or if you need to pay somebody some money like alimony, child support, if you need to pay some overdue taxes, these are all issues you may encounter some problems with, but eventually they will be cleared up if you're patient and if you do the right thing, if you stand in your integrity at the end of Saturn's transit. You may become more efficient in terms of making people trust you. You may become better in the bedroom. Yes, this is a wonderful period to begin experimenting with your body. What gives you pleasure? What turns you off? You may be finding the need for more privacy, like becoming a little bit more reclusive, not sharing of your energy as much as you used to do in the past. Anything that is related to healing, if you study it, if you practice it intensely, it's going to pay off big time, and also in financial ways, as long as Saturn is transiting through this really dark, occult, and sexy house. As you come up from the darkness, from the 8th house, into the bright, beautiful light of the divine 9th house, you are going to encounter some challenges here as Saturn is transiting through your 9th house. And the challenges here are going to be connected to your connection to the divine. You may be feeling like all of a sudden your capacity to believe in a higher power has been cut off. You may be feeling like Your faith and trust that the world is interconnected, that we are all one, the planet is safe, that you can travel. All of these things are going to all of a sudden feel restricted, limited, and you will have a lot of fear of travel, strangers, higher education, inexplicable fears, fears that you can't really put into logical words. They're going to crop up over you. There could be some problems here related to religious fervor. Maybe there is some religious unrest in the country where you find yourself at the time at which Saturn begins its transit through the 9th house. So you may be afraid that a religious party could instill violence upon the religious group that you are part of. There could be issues here related to you going to study or to relocate, to immigrate into another country, into another territory. People may see your culture and your identity as in some way like you are a third-hand citizen, or there may be some cliches and stereotypes that you have to come across, and people will scrutinize you more. They may do some sort of extra checks at the airports. They may try to frustrate you in the process of getting your visa. You may have to go to the consulate several times, to talk to people at embassy several times. But if you persist, if you persevere, you will get an opportunity to go abroad to study and get your certificates, your diploma, and also to be able to travel there for work or for pleasure, to not be so afraid of foreigners and to not be so afraid of international connections with other people. You may actually have some sort of deep spiritual awakening as you are traveling to another place. Saturn in the 10th house, well, this is the house that Saturn loves to be in because it's the house naturally ruled by Saturn. The house of achievement, professional success, our career, and how people see us long before we have left this earthly plane. This is what's contained in the 10th house. Your social media presence, the ways in which you advertise yourself as a person, as an entrepreneur, as a business person, as a student, your LinkedIn profile, for example, your CV, all of these things are going to come under scrutiny. You will have to put a lot more work into redefining who you are on a professional level if you want to achieve success. Joining the ranks of elite groups is going to become incredibly important to you, but it's also going to be fraught with a lot of resistance. You may want to be part of a certain group of people, such as you're a student studying law and you want to enter into a bureau, you want to become an associate at a law firm, and you will have to pass through a lot of tests, through a lot of interviews. You will have to fall under the scrutiny of older, more experienced people. If you put effort into this, you are going to make it on the other side and you will be rewarded with a lifetime of success. You will reach that top position. You will become a member of a board, a certified doctor. From a trainee, you will move to being a fully acknowledged doctor or physician. It's not only these traditional professions that will be affected. You may be feeling like you are a little bit purposeless when this transit begins, and you may want to break away from corporate work or an institutional government work to create your own business. And you're going to have to put a lot more effort into the way you advertise yourself in order to pull in clients. So make sure that all of the ways through which people can reach you, through which people can see you, through which your public presence is acknowledged, make sure that they are all clear, crisp, organized, ethical, and that people have a very direct understanding of who you are and what services or products you are selling. I said I was not going to talk too much about this, but I get so passionate about each of these houses. Anyway, I do hope that this helps. Comment down below and let me know. And please remember to like this video as well, as we are midway through it. Talking about getting the support of your community, especially in this online format, the 11th house is exactly that. Some people consider the 11th house to be the house of the World Wide Web. It is the house of progress, achievements, life purpose, the future. It is a blessed house, much like the 9th house, ruled usually by a Saturnian or a previously Saturnian-led sign, the sign of Aquarius, which is now recently ruled by Uranus. Whatever you started building and trying to ambitiously achieve in the 10th house is going to be supported by the 11th house. So it is the house of how co-workers, social groups, your friends, your network supports the achievement of your public presence, of your role in society, and of how you get your job done, how you are seen as a professional. Saturn is going to test your capacity to communicate to other people the knowledge that you have in order to reach a specific educational or social goal. You're going to feel so strongly motivated to do something right for society, to help the underdogs, to bring back the outcasts into the ranks of society and help them in some way. You're going to want to do something social, humanitarian. But at the same time, as you feel this passionate ambition, a lot of people are going to be putting their sticks in the mud and trying to block you from doing that. You may join non-governmental organizations that protect children, the environment, the weak, people from war-torn places, and you would be doing a great work and a great service to humanity by doing that. We certainly need more people like you. At the same time, you may be finding it increasingly difficult to support that role, especially in the first phase of Saturn and Aries, which is the phase in which you come across a lot of fear, a lot of limitations. You're going to be feeling like, can I do this work? Why did I sign up for it? Maybe I made a mistake. Am I brave enough to continue this kind of work? If you stick to it, you are actually going to start to see slowly results appearing in that area. And by the end of this transit, you may even win an award or attract a lot of money towards the organization that you are working as part of. Because Saturn is in Aries and Aries is a pioneer and a leader, you may want to begin your very own humanitarian organization. You may want to start up your own creative group. You may open a cafe or some place in your local neighborhood to create a third space of meeting for the people in society. This could also be a great house for political work. So if you're a person that is at the moment engaged in politics, you will have some really rough issues to deal with. But if you stick with them and you show integrity, honesty, and you communicate clearly to those that have voted you, then you stand a great chance of achieving work that will stand the test of time and actually change society for the better. Woo! And we reached the 12th house, and this is the house of the zodiac in which everybody comes to rest. It is a very misunderstood house. A lot of people hate the 12th house because we are so driven on doing in our society, and Saturn in Aries is going to be showing us the limitations of this philosophy of constantly moving ahead with a lot of speed and doing as much as we can and being productive. Saturn is going to get us to slow down, be patient, return to important values, reconsider our relationships, and try not to do everything on your own and failing at it, but actually convincing other people through the power of your personal example, through your role model, that they can join your cause, and united we stand stronger than divided. So in the 12th house, as we rest, as we retreat from society after we have done all of our work through the other 12 zodiac signs, you may be feeling a little bit isolated. In the next 2 years and a half, for those of you who have the Saturn placement, you will be feeling like you need to sleep more, you need more privacy, you need more quiet and stillness. You may even decide to take a pilgrimage, to retreat from society by purchasing a cabin in the woods, working the land on a remote strip of land. You may decide to join a convent, a monastery, not necessarily to work as part of a religious group. You could be doing that as well, but you could be just visiting there for a period of time to try to finish writing your dissertation. I know that in my country, in Romania, people actually go and pay a sum of money to a specific convent, a specific monastery, and oh boy, do we have a lot of them, and they're absolutely gorgeous here in Romania. And they do this for a period of time so that they can finish writing their dissertation, their books, so that they can conduct some ethnological research or write a culinary cookbook. It is not uncommon for monasteries and convents to be places of study, rest, and retreat. And also the food is amazingly good there because most of the produce are fresh and locally sourced. You may be finding that it's important for you to take a really long trip. A trip that will involve some sort of crossing over a sea, a body of water. You may want to seclude yourself in your own house and spend time focusing on a creative project, or even focusing on healing yourself, on resting more and releasing certain emotions that you've been carrying for a lifetime. Saturn in the 12th house could also be a period in which you have welcomed a new member of your family. Let's say you recently became a parent and you have to spend a lot of time training the child how to sleep, taking care of the child's needs. So that could be one aspect in which this energy plays out. Please keep in mind that there could be delays, there could be problems in your capacity to feel your feelings, process them, and understand them. You could find yourself crying more often and not knowing why you're doing it. When I had Saturn transiting through my 12th house, I had to say goodbye to a lot of things. I was going through a certain separation. I had to let go of the plans that I had of becoming a specific person. I wanted to become a psychotherapist, and I had to let that go in order to transform into becoming a sociologist. I was moved away from home. I was living in Scotland while I am originally from Romania. I had to let go of a lot of things. I was feeling removed and far away from my loved ones. And it was just a period in which I started going to therapy and I started seeing an art therapist. And by talking to her and painting, I really managed to process my feelings. So expressing yourself in a creative way, resting more, talking with a trained professional about your feelings, or just running away from society for a period of 2.5 years could be all ways in which you feel like you have to pay back karma to Saturn in the 12th house. But all in all, you need to keep in mind, this is a wrap-up point. Don't begin anything new in the next year, which is going to be a little bit frustrating because Aries is this pioneering energy. But try to see your beginning as you're beginning your process of letting go. Yeah, it's important to let go of all of the things that no longer work in your life so that you can prepare for the transit of Saturn in Taurus in your first house, which happens naturally as we're closing the cycle. Okay, so I feel like I've been talking for about 50 minutes. We went through Saturn, through the planets and through the houses. I gave you the facts that you needed to know. Let's wrap up with some really important nutshell sentences. What is Saturn in Aries gonna be about? Anger management. This is a really important one. Whether individually or collectively, we are going to be pushed to find a way to not run away from our anger. We have to find a way to deal with it constructively rather than to tear each other down. This anger management process is going to lead to negotiations to end conflicts and wars. My biggest hope is that Saturn is going to work together with Neptune and collectively stop conflicts, stop wars, stop the excesses of ego and ego-driven actions. Because in the past years, we've been having the North Node in Aries, which is a malefic energy. We've been having Jupiter in Aries, which tends to exaggerate the ego very strongly. And it's a lot about me first. It's quite a selfish placement in a person's chart. I can tell you this because I have it natally. And it can disrupt a lot of things. And we've been seeing how territories were taken away, how people were constantly struggling without being able to find a compromise. Well, at this point in time, whatever was the legacy of North Node and having Jupiter in Aries in the past years, since about 2023, now Saturn in Aries is going to put an end to that. It's going to be the wrap up, the final karmic lesson, and it will be a general icing out of conflicts, a general stabilization of war-torn regions. It will be also important to understand how are you being selfish in your life? And it will become increasingly important for us to also become aware that you need to pair up with other people in order to thrive. A lot of us have been sensitized by conflicts, by natural phenomena, by disasters, by economic downturns, and we may have reached a point in our lives when we can no longer be self-sufficient. So don't be ashamed if in the next 2.5 years you may have to move back in with your parents. You may have to get married for economic security. You may have to pare down your assets a little bit and sell some of the things that you have acquired in the last years in order to find a way to thrive in the coming years. There will be also opportunities for you to start something new. There will be gaps in the market. New needs will be created. So you can come across a new profession. You can invent your own profession. You can scan and see what people around you are looking for and provide that service to them, thereby creating your own job. So there will be some problematic aspects like criminality, but there will also be some beautiful aspects like creativity and beginning new forms of knowledge, new forms of being and existing. We will be seeing some advances in terms of identity. We have been seeing how the LGBTQ groups have been repressed by all of this traditional and far-right groups in society that are trying to gain positions of power in politics. And whatever has been stifled by those extremist groups is now going to bubble up to the surface and be re-evaluated. So we may be seeing restructuring of LGBTQ groups and how they are able to participate in society and get subsidies from the government, issues related to transsex or transgendered individuals, individuals or people that are trying to get operations to change their gender are going to be really important. How we design identity cards is going to be so important, and what we do with them, what do we write on them, and how individual rights are protected by the Constitution and how they infringe upon certain rights that the Constitution is putting forward. We are going to be seeing this battle of the individual and how it fits into society. The beautiful news is that Saturn is going to be working in friendly aspects together with Neptune and also Uranus in Gemini from the summer of 2025. It's already really supported by Pluto in Aquarius. So this means that you will find your tribe by being friendly and communicating things directly. Don't go too deep. Remain at a superficial level, but gather as much information as you can. Ask a lot of questions. Read, write, communicate. Tell people what's going on in your local environment. If you don't know what to do, ask the community. While there may be a fear of expressing your authentic self, there will be some powerful lessons of courage. People that have natal placements in Aries are going to be seen as role models. So if you have a sun in Aries and you've been doing a lot of brave work in the past years, this is your time to shine, baby. Saturn is also rewarding hard work. So not all of you are going to be going through a difficult transit. Usually Saturn puts pressure on you when you know you should be doing something, but you are procrastinating. Saturn tends to reward those of you who have been doing the great work at becoming who you're meant to be, your sun, the great work of being emotionally open and brave with your feelings and being very loving, Saturn moving over your moon, the great work taking care of yourself and your relationships, really putting a lot of effort into your beauty, into your quality and self-worth, Saturn crossing over your Venus, the great work of managing your sexuality, your energy levels, and your ambition, being a person that other people see as a comrade, as a team player, somebody that joins in and helps others lead a specific area. So Saturn transiting over your Mars. If as well you have been having the North Node in Aries, and if you have been taking very strong, deliberate measures in defending yourself and those that cannot defend themselves, and giving a voice to victims and other people who have gone through abuses or any sort of relational issues, then you are going to be rewarded in the next period. And we can see, for example, what's going on with Cassie Ventura in the P. Diddy trial. No matter what the verdict is going to be on P. Diddy, she is the one that actually stood up with bravery and being incredibly pregnant as well, being very visibly vulnerable, and she's the one that's coming out with a lot of public support and having made a very good impression as being a person who's brave enough to take on a very powerful man and not crumbling in front of this pressure. Saturn in Aries is a real David versus Goliath vibe, and if you don't know the myth, I highly recommend that you go and check it out. It's basically a metaphor for how a little person that may not be physically so powerful, that may be weak, at least exteriorly seeming, can actually outsmart an incredibly powerful, tough person. And we've been seeing this happening in my country in terms of politics. A guy that looked the part of a leader and was actually not at all the personality of a leader was voted down from the ranks by a guy who is incredibly geeky but has his heart in the right place and has all the values that we want to see in a true leader. So don't be fooled by how people look. Saturn in Aries is not about looks, it's about personality, energy, and how passionate you are about defending what is right and doing the right thing. If you are artistic, if you're a creative person, in the next period, I need you to keep in mind that you will be going through certain blocks in your capacity to be creative. You may suffer from writer's block or creative content block. But if you put a lot of effort into dealing with these feelings, and if you start experimenting a little bit and trying out some new things, taking yourself outside of your daily work schedule and coming back to it with fresh eyes, you stand the chance of melting those blocks away and actually paving the path for a new way to be creative, a new way to be artistic. Because Saturn is this icy, earthbound energy, and it is going to be in a feisty, impulsive sign, there will be some issues here related to taking action and having the discipline to take action. There will be some problems here related to how self-disciplined you are to implement all of your goals. Keep this in mind and schedule accordingly. There could also be the negative characteristics of the policing of overly independent people. People that, for example, have their own businesses, or people that are single, people that live on the outskirts of society or are weird and unique in a certain way. I really like Jenna Marvin. I'm writing an article about her at the moment. She was born with a really powerful conjunction between Saturn, her moon, and her Jupiter in the sign of Aries. And she is a path breaker. There will be some karma incurred in your life if you are arrogant, if you are fast, or if you rush into things without giving some forethought. If you are too self-interested, and if you're flying too close to the sun, like Icarus, then you may burn your wings in this period. So take things slowly, be deliberate, and have a plan, and you will be able to achieve your outcomes. If you have struggled on your own in the past, Saturn could also bring people towards you and help you feel like you are supported by a group, a community, like you're finally fitting in. And not only that, but this will be an excellent period to consolidate and strengthen things that you began on a whim. Maybe a hobby that you've been really passionate about in the last year is now going to become a lucrative source of income. Something that you impulsively began, whether it was a relationship, or you created a contract with somebody, or you came up with a random idea that you thought was fun. Now you will feel an inner sense of discipline to actually proceed to work on it, to refine it, to chisel it, and to create something long-lasting out of it. And finally, what I need to say is that Saturn in Aries is going to be a lot about collectively, all of us feeling the pressure to begin again in our lives. We know we have to begin again. We know that things can no longer move the way in which they have been moving. Everything is effed up, to put it mildly, and we have to somehow rebuild. We have to reconstruct. We have to correct a lot of mistakes. We have to come up with new ideas to adapt an old paradigm to something fresh and progressive. But a lot of us are going to be feeling a little bit like we are dealing with the unknown, because Saturn is going to be having the strong conjunction with Neptune. So the desire to begin something and to change something is going to be very powerful, and we will feel it in our bones. But then we're going to be feeling like we don't know exactly where to begin, or with whom to talk, or what exactly to bring into being. So we will need to work with the divine. We will need to understand that we are co-creators. It's not just us, it's us and God, this universal energy that inspires us, come up with ideas, to love one another, and to transcend our egos. Overall, I see this difficult transit as a really positive one. It's going to help us come together. It's going to help us create more spaces in society in which we can come together. As Saturn will be in this wonderful energy with Uranus in Gemini and Pluto in Aquarius, communication and being social, open, honest, and really fighting for the political rights and the regimes in our country to be regimes that represent us, the people that are in that country, well, that's going to be the exciting work that's going to take place in the next 2.5 years. That's it. This is the video. I felt like I said my piece on everything I wanted to say. Obviously, there's always more that you can learn and study about Saturn. I highly recommend this resource, Saturn, A New Look at an Old Devil by Liz Green. She's a wonderful astrologer, and this is a very comprehensive analysis of Saturn. As you can see, mine was highlighted to the bone. Here's a quote from Liz, the way in which she describes Saturn in Aries. And if you need some further homework, there is this wonderful book, Aspects in Astrology, by astrologer Sue Tompkins. And she describes in depth the influence of Saturn transiting in conjunction with Neptune. Here is what she has to say about this aspect. In addition to these resources, I myself am a resource to you. I'll continue to update this channel with astrological clips. I will be focusing on synastry analysis of famous celebrity couples as I have accustomed you. I'll continue with my Astro Babes, Astro Hunks, and Vintage Hollywood series, but I will also be interrupting the usual schedule by giving you a breakdown of a planetary transit. There is more coming, so please subscribe and click that bell to be notified. You can also go on my website, thespiritualsocial.com. It's It's linked in the description box below because I publish there astrological articles, and I try to look at a specific chart of an individual or the charts of a country, or I am going through certain weird experiences myself, and I try to give you my personal subjective point of view related to a particular transit I am experiencing at the moment. So maybe it can help you as well feel less alone and feel more acknowledged or seen if you are going through something similar. I am a certified astrologer, keep that in mind. So please, if you want to get in touch with me for a synastry report, for a transit report, a birth chart reading, I also offer a unique service, a love asteroids report. So please get in touch with me. I would love to work with you. Thank you for hanging out with me. I appreciate your company. And until next time, let the stars lead the way.